Welcome to the Friday night, January 14th edition of studentloanjustice.org. My name is Alan Collins. We're glad that you found us. We are the oldest and largest true grassroots group fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. So for the first 15 years of our existence, that meant very moderately just the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. But today I am here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this lending system is essentially dead. It's all over but the shouting. The pandemic killed it. The numbers are off the cliff. The best thing right now at this late date in the death spiral of this lending program is to cancel all of the loans, clear the debt, and restart again. However, the most important thing I'm going to tell you tonight, even still today, bankruptcy lies at the core of this issue. Nobody wants to file for bankruptcy. It's a terrible thing to have to do. But until and unless we get the threat, not that many or maybe even any people will have to file, but unless and until we get the threat of bankruptcy back on our side, we are not going to see meaningful student loan cancellation. Joe Biden at most will do a bullshit, pardon my French, up to $50,000 nonsense that the Department of Education will means test and bureaucratize to death. Now, we've been doing this for far too long to be tricked again by this play. We've seen the bad guys go to great lengths in decades past, several times, to kill the push for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. And we're not going to be tricked again, ladies and gentlemen. We're too old. We've been doing this for too long. So, hey, if I can see your questions or comments either on Facebook or on Twitter, throw them out. I'm very happy to respond to them. Sometimes I can't see them, but hopefully I will. So tonight, I want to talk about the opposition. The opposition is freaked out right now, and they are attacking. They're attacking hard. They want this lending system turned back on. They want that revenue stream going back into their pockets. And they are very worried because they know what I know. And what I know is that even before the pandemic, 80% of all borrowers were never going to be able to pay. Over 50% of all borrowers before the pandemic were not paying. So this lending system is going away, folks, and the bad guys are freaked out, and the opposition is going into overdrive against us. Number one, they continue to try and keep bankruptcy gone. Some of them are even pushing this nonsense up to $50,000 loan cancellation. See, that's the trick. If they can do a fake loan cancellation and keep bankruptcy gone from the loans, then the lending system will roll on and roll through your life, my life, 45 million, well, probably 39 or 40 million other distressed student loan borrowers' lives. And that is exactly what is not wanted. So yeah, guys, we have a bill in the Senate right now, S-2598. It's got to pass. It's got Republicans on the bill, which is very good because historically Republicans have opposed us. So the opposition is attacking us hard. Number one thing on my list right now is a guy named Stephen K. Bannon. He's a Trump advisor. He's essentially the thought leader for MAGA Nation. He's got a very powerful and strong movement. And quite frankly, a lot of the things that he says sound really good. You know, he talks about economic populism. He talks about how the hollowing out of the industrial base in this country, the hollowing out of pretty much everything by the he would say globalist corporations, etc. And you know, there's not a lot to disagree with there. So he's onto something. But here's the problem with Stephen K. Bannon. He was very quiet. In fact, he was absolutely silent on the student loan issue until 2 days ago. For years and years, I tracked him very closely. And I can tell you that for years and years, he said absolutely not one word about student loans. Well, 2 days ago, he finally broke the silence. And he came out swinging like a swamp creature on steroids. He said, "Make those snowflakes pay their student loans. Every last penny," he said. He said, "Turn this lending system back on and make them pay." And you know, the hypocrisy of this guy, Stephen K. Bannon, is, I could not be more disappointed in this guy. He wants everyone to think that student loan borrowers are a bunch of liberal snowflakes, kids that overborrowed to get useless degrees, a bunch of indoctrinated socialists, etc. No. The opposite of that is true. And if you can forward this to Stephen K. Bannon, you do that, because this asshole needs to learn a few things about who the student loan borrowers are. Number one, 55% of the 45 million student loan borrowers in the country are either Republican or independent. Number two, 40% of these people, us, the 45 million student loan borrowers, never even graduated. Millions of us went to trade schools, to Voc-Techs, to learn stuff like welding and whatever else you go to Voc-Techs for, auto repair, you name it. Older people outnumber younger people with student loans. There are more people over 35 than under 35 with student loans, and they owe far more despite having borrowed much less. There are more people over the age of 50 with student loans than under the age of 25. And again, they owe 3 times more than the younger group, despite having borrowed probably less than a third, far less than a third of what the kids are borrowing today. This is not a young person's problem. And one other thing, liberal elites, they do not get student loans. They're elites. They have trust funds. They don't qualify for student loans. 100% of everybody who qualifies for a federal student loan is financially needy. They're not elites. Are there some liberals in there? Yeah, obviously. We are I'd say probably a pretty fair cross section of this country. Stephen K. Bannon does not get it. Stephen K. Bannon ought to be ashamed of himself, because by wagging his finger at us, the people who are being crushed by this college feeding big government, some would say socialistic loan scam, he is actually defending them. And he's a smart guy. I think he knows it. He's a Harvard graduate himself. He's a Goldman Sachs guy. He should know better. But I'm telling you right now, and if somebody can send this to Stephen Bannon, he needs to know that by wagging his fingers at us, he is fighting for the colleges, he is fighting for the government, and he is fighting against his own base. Look at states like Georgia. The state budget of Georgia is $48 billion. The people of Georgia owe $82 billion in mostly federal student loan debt. Look at Texas. The state budget of Texas is $119 billion, which is a lot of money. The people of Texas owe about $141 billion in mostly federal student loan debt. I could spout similar statistics where the student loan debt exceeds the state budget for states like Florida, Ohio, Michigan, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, South Dakota, I think Nevada. All these historically North and South Carolina, Virginia. These are by and large historically red states. They are being absolutely wrecked by mostly federal student loan debt. There is nothing conservative about fighting for this lending system and wagging your finger at the normal people, more than half of whom are either Republican or independent, that are being crushed. So Stephen K. Bannon, frankly, is an idiot, and he ought to be ashamed of himself, and he ought to turn in his conservative card, because he done lost that. He played that in a bad hand, and he lost the right to call himself a conservative. This is a big government lending monstrosity that needs to be taken to the bath and drowned in the tub, in the words of very conservative Grover Norquist. So Steve Bannon is playing a charade here. I think that makes him a charlatan, does it not? Is a charlatan somebody who makes charades? I think it is. Steve Bannon ought to be ashamed of himself. And any red-blooded Republican out there who's been crushed by these student loans, and I know there are many, you people, you need to step up and start speaking out against people like Steve K. Bannon. You know, he's a Harvard guy. He's a Goldman Sachs guy. He pretends to be, pretends to be this economic populist, but it's fake. He should go back to Harvard. He should go back to Goldman Sachs. He ought to be ashamed of himself. And oh, by the way, you think Georgia's going to be any easier next time than it is this time? Yeah, maybe it'll be a little bit easier. But as long as you have 2 million Georgians, most of whom probably way over 55% are Republican or independent, have no Republican to vote for, you know, 80% of all 45 million student loan borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans even before the pandemic. These people vote. And if you count private student loan borrowers and cosigners, we're up to probably 60 million people. That's nearly enough to elect a president outright. And as long as the bankers shill, the Goldman Sachs Harvard guy, Stephen K. Bannon, keeps wagging his fingers at the people being crushed by this big government college enriching lending scam, the biggest and worst in U.S. history, as long as he keeps fighting for the swamp and the colleges, they're going to have a hard time winning Georgia, winning states like Michigan, many other states. So anyways, shame on him. I could not be more disappointed and disgusted. And, you know, not only did I say it 2 days ago, he said it again yesterday. And he ought to be just massively ashamed of himself. As I said, if you have any questions or comments, guys, throw them out. And if I can see them, I will respond to them. So we're also getting some other opposition, guys. It's not just from the right that we get opposition. We get opposition from people claiming to be on the left, or I don't know, what would you call a Georgetown academic? I think they probably would call themselves liberal or progressive or something. But like, for example, there's a guy named Adam Leviton who wrote a paper recently about solving the student loan problem. He is a scholar, a bankruptcy scholar. He claims, and it's true. I've been reading his stuff since 2007. So he wrote a paper the other day calling for a new income contingent repayment program or income driven repayment program. So we've seen many income driven, income contingent, income based repayment programs come and go and come and go since the 1990s. And literally 99.9% of the people who have tried for them have been disqualified out of them before getting their loans canceled at the end of the repayment term. And this is going to happen for IBR, by the way. Statistically, based on their annual disqualification rates, less than 1% of the people trying for IBR are going to actually make it through. You wonder why less than 1% made it through public service? Same nonsense shenanigans. Big government bureaucratization, baffling and bamboozling are going on with IBR as happened with public service. So this paper that Adam Leviton and his colleague, whose name escapes me, wrote this paper calling for yet another income-driven repayment program. They made zero mention of bankruptcy. Zero. Didn't even mention bankruptcy in the paper at all. And so I asked Adam about this on Twitter. And what I got back just blew my mind. Adam Leviton said, and this is almost an exact quote, he said student loans are easily the friendliest consumer debt product in existence. And so let's take that statement and let's look at that quickly. First of all loans, almost every loan I can think of, any loan you can name, besides federal student loans, they have bankruptcy protections, which they have statutes of limitations. They have truth in lending laws. They have fair debt collection practice laws that they have to abide by. Federal student loans have almost none of those. No bankruptcy, no statute of limitations, no truth in lending, very restricted fair debt collection practices. So how is that friendly? How exactly does that make federal student loans friendlier, or even the friendliest consumer debt instrument in existence? I asked Adam about this, and he really didn't answer the question. Well, what he said was that the fact that you can borrow a lot of money with little or no like bad or no credit at all makes it friendly. So so then my next question to Adam was, Adam, why is it friendly to stack tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in non-dischargeable, absolutely predatory, worse than the mafia in the collection powers? Why is it friendly to throw that kind of debt onto unsuspecting borrowers and their parents? Why is that friendly? And Mr. Leviton failed to respond. But the real question I have for Adam is, why is it that you, a bankruptcy scholar, are... Oh, and another thing Adam said bankruptcy is not the right solution for student loans. So how could it possibly be that someone calling himself a bankruptcy scholar, as Mr. Adam Leviton does, could possibly, with a straight face, argue against the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans? That is beyond rationality. It's beyond the pale. It's beyond anything. People like Adam Leviton, it's kind of their job as bankruptcy scholars, or like a fellow at the American Bankruptcy Institute. It's kind of his job to stand up and point out why, indeed, it is the unique removal of bankruptcy protections from federal student loans that caused us to be where we are today. It is the removal of bankruptcy and the removal also of statute of limitations, I would say. That's the 1-2 punch that have made these loans uniquely cruel and vicious, and enabled the hyperinflation, the jacking of the cost of college, and the massive increase in debt being thrown onto the people. Back in 1998, when they took bankruptcy away permanently from federal student loans, permanently, not really permanently, but with no time limit, no 7-year or 5-year waiting period, we owed probably not even $100 billion in student loan debt. So it's like 1998, not even $100 billion. Today, ever since they removed bankruptcy, we've gone, and the line was kind of like this, all the way from the 70s to the 80s, 90s, 1998. And then 1998 happens, and all of a sudden, the line goes like this after 1998. Today, we owe probably close to $2 trillion. There's a lot of interest, I think, is not being counted in the official federal number there. So that is not a coincidence. It is the absence of bankruptcy that removed all good faith from these loans and removed all limits from the lending mafia and the colleges, who very happily raised their tuition to capture this wealth in the form of this government loan subsidy. So people like Adam Leviton, they are the experts who should have noticed this and who should have been raising the alarm flags decades ago. People like Adam Leviton completely failed to fulfill their professional responsibility. I would accuse people like Adam Leviton of gross negligence at best. Quite frankly, given that Mr. Adam Leviton sucks his money out of a college, Georgetown, that sucks its money out of the federal loan program, quite frankly, I'd say there's something even more sinister going on there. Shame on Adam Leviton. So we have a quick comment here. Gordon Wayne Watts says, students have paid more than they borrowed, at least when looking at defaulted loans. I hope to tell Steve Bannon this, so he should shut up. We repaid it. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's pretty much right, Gordon. Going back to 2004, the federal government was making a profit on defaulted student loans. In the absence of bankruptcy protections, in the absence of statute of limitations, in the absence of all those other consumer protections, and in the presence of this worse than mafia like collection regime that allows them to take your wages and your taxes and your social security, even get you fired from public employment, get your professional license suspended, many, many other terrible collection powers that follow you for the rest of your life. The government managed to make a profit on defaulted student loans. That's something no other lender for any other loan can claim. Credit cards, you name the loan, and I'll show you something. I'll show you a credit instrument that has a recovery rate, that is how much they get back on defaulted loans, of something like 5, 10, 15%. So that's like 5, 10, 15 cents on the dollar. For federal student loans, going back to 2004 and before, the federal government was getting back over $1 on the dollar for defaulted student loans. And, you know, the government has been the lender, not just a guarantor, but the actual lender making the interest on loans since 2010. And they have been booking, well, 50 billion in profits in, I think, 2012, but certainly that has increased tremendously as the loan portfolio has essentially doubled since 2011, 2012. So the government has been making a king's ransom in profit on this lending system for 10 years. Of the $1.8 trillion outstanding, nobody knows how much is interest, how much is unpaid principal. But I'm a pretty good guesser. I've been doing this for many years. And my best guess is that maybe a couple hundred billion, maybe 250 billion is actual unpaid principal. And the rest is just interest and penalties and fees and capitalized interest, other nonsense, not original unpaid principal. And plus, if you look at all the profits over the past 10 years, it could very well be that the president could cancel these loans tomorrow, which he could do, by the way, without one dime from the Treasury, without adding even one penny to the national debt. You can't say that about any other economic stimulus we've seen. He could do that. And the government, the taxpayer, would be maybe even breaking even, like maybe even in the black. I don't know, but certainly the taxpayers would be losing not much, if anything. So this lending system has worn out its welcome. This lending system is something that the founding fathers feared. The founding fathers called for uniform bankruptcy laws. It had the power to declare war. It had the power to raise an army in the Constitution. There's a good reason for that. And this student loan monstrosity is precisely what they wanted to avoid. So here we are 250 years later. Student loans are the only type of loan from which this very important consumer protection constitutional right, I would say, of bankruptcy has been removed. And even still today, bankruptcy, we're fighting for loan cancellation. Don't get me wrong. These loans have got to be canceled. There's no saving this lending system. The president should cancel all federally owned student loans tomorrow. But bankruptcy remains the most important thing, because right now we're not going to see any meaningful loan cancellation from Joe Biden as long as bankruptcy is gone. And maybe more to your current situation, come May 1st, when they turn this lending system back on, we are going to see a mass default. That's going to happen. Less than half of everyone was paying before the pandemic. Far, far, far less than half are going to resume paying when they start asking us to pay again. That's just going to happen. It's going to be a mass default. The collection industry is drooling at the prospect of a mass default. They want that. They want to see a mass default as long as bankruptcy protections remain gone from the loans. So if you're like the majority of student loan borrowers out there, you're not going to start paying your student loans again come May 1st. It's not going to happen. So ask yourself this question. When May 1st comes, would you rather face May 1st with the threat of bankruptcy back in your arsenal, with the tool of bankruptcy in your back pocket? Or would you rather face May 1st naked, afraid, and vulnerable like you are today in the absence of this constitutional right? Well, obviously, I think it's the first thing, right? Only an idiot would be like, yeah, I want May 1st to come and I want to see that mass default, but I don't want bankruptcy protections because I want to be rolled over and wrecked by the collection goon squad. No, 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 no. That's nonsense. And anybody out there who's trying to pit bankruptcy against student loan cancellation, they either don't know a fucking thing about this issue, or they do know and they're corrupted and they are fighting for the bad guys. And I hate to say that, guys, but we have seen in years and decades past many groups come, including some that exist today, who have gone out of their way to kill the push for the return of constitutional bankruptcy protections. And some of these groups, whose names I won't mention, but at least one of them still exists today, and you probably, if you care about this issue, you probably have seen them. We found close ties between this group and a lobbying firm called DCI Group, which is a company, a lobbying firm famous for creating fake grassroots movements on behalf of banks, tobacco companies, oil companies, even foreign countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, the opposition is out there, and they are fighting very hard. And I'm worried about them, and you should be too. But the one thing that we the borrowers have going for us, and by the way, we're a nonpartisan group. We are as grassroots as they get. I'm a normal guy. I got student loans. Everybody in our group, normal people. We fight for the end of this. We don't do dirty deals with secret handshake people. No, we don't do any of that bullshit. But you need to help us fight, because the one thing that we do have are numbers. We've got 41 million distressed student loan borrowers in the country. They all need to know about us and this group. We are the only group in existence fighting for the only citizens group in existence fighting for the return of bankruptcy protection to student loans. And guys, I'm going to say it for the third time tonight. We are not going to see meaningful student loan cancellation unless and until we get the constitutionally enshrined right of the threat of bankruptcy back on our side. It's the most important thing you need to know. And if you really want these loans gone, maybe you just want a break on your interest or something less than absolute cancellation. Whatever solution you desire, it's probably only going to happen when we get the threat of bankruptcy back on our side. So there's a bill right now. It's called S-2598. It's in the Senate. It's a bipartisan bill. Historically, Republicans have opposed this. I don't know why. It makes no sense. People like Steve Bannon ought to be ashamed of themselves. But historically, that's been true. But I'm here to report that we actually have more Republicans on this Senate bill, S-2598, than Democrats right now. It's 2-1. The bill is extraordinarily well positioned in the Senate. Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Richard Durbin, is the prime sponsor on the bill, and the prime co-sponsor is Senator John Cornyn from Texas. Josh Hawley, Republican senator from Missouri, is also on the bill. These three men are to be applauded. But more than that, guys, we have got to fight as hard as we possibly can to get this bill through. That's what we do every single day. That's our laser focus. And if you want loans canceled, or maybe you just want a fair workout, some interest, whatever, you got to help us fight for bankruptcy. And that is the most true, most important, most significant thing I will probably ever say in this fight. We could get this done by May 1st, guys, and we should really be aiming for exactly that. The bill is in good shape. It's right on track. Senator Durbin theoretically could get it passed out of committee and probably through the Senate, certainly by realistically, possibly by like April 1st. And so that could happen, but we've got to fight. You and me have got to fight. We've got to put the pressure on. Our opposition is not resting, and we cannot either. So if ever you sitting there, we're going to actually fight to get these loans gone, and this is your battle, these are your loans, this is your problem, then you would spend the next 2-3 months spending some very serious time and effort helping us. So if you go to our website, studentloanjustice.org, and you go to our daily actions, you will see many months worth of daily actions. I would ask that you do at least a month's worth of those daily actions. They don't take long. It's like Twitter stuff. It's like you can do a day's worth of actions usually in probably 15 or 20 seconds. So it's not hard stuff at all. And it makes a huge difference when everyone does it. There is true strength in numbers. And guys, we have the numbers. We've got over 1 million people on our petition, which is change.org/cancel student loans. We've got probably a couple 100,000 people across our other platforms at this point. So that is enough people to overwhelm everyone in Washington, D.C. when everybody helps. So if you want these loans gone, like I do, if you want these loans maybe even just handled as I do, then you better help us fight, because this shit is not going to solve itself, and the opposition is strong. You can't sit there and wait and watch and worry and eat popcorn and cheerlead and make excuses to yourself to why you're not fucking helping us. You can't do that. You got to put your own work in on this block. If we've learned nothing else over the years, it's that when you do nothing, nothing happens. Nothing good happens. So think about that. We need you, and you need us, and you need everybody to help. And unfortunately, I don't know why, but we are the only group fighting for this. Like, it's astonishing to me that the other student loan activists aren't fighting for the return of bankruptcy of these loans. They, quite frankly, ought to be ashamed of themselves. They are setting student loan borrowers up for a big fail. You know, calling for a payment stoppage on May 1st is all good and well, but calling for that in the absence of bankruptcy is ludicrous. It's insanity. Quite frankly, it's exactly what the swamp, exactly what the collection companies want. So shame on them. I suggest very strongly they rethink themselves on this very important policy point. Anyways, I can't speak for the other groups. I know at least one of them is corrupted. They can defend themselves. The main thing that I hope is that normal people watching this will sort of osmote the honesty with which I am comporting myself and realize that, yeah, no, I think maybe this guy's onto something. Maybe he's been doing this for 16 fucking years now. And maybe he's not just like tricking us or something. Yeah, because I'm not. So, all right, guys. Hey, we had a great week, by the way. We did a pretty interesting talk yesterday. I'm going to post the video for it. This was University of Southern California, Stanford, Berkeley, some pretty hoity-toity universities that we were on a panel with. I was glad to hear them saying what they were saying. I think it's long past time that the colleges stepped up and maybe owned up to their responsibility for this crisis. And that sort of happened last night. And quite frankly, many other universities need to step up and be doing the mea culpa thing as well. And I think that will happen going forward. I think that we have really started something with this. And by the way, I want to thank Lisa Ansell at the University of Southern California Ansell Institute for making the whole thing happen. Hopefully we'll have more events like last night's for you to check out and for you to participate in. If you would like to create an event wherever you may live, I would be very happy to work with you on that. We would love to go into the most conservative dens possible and make this argument. You know, where this problem is solved, it's not by preaching to the choir and Ilhan Omar and AOC and, you know, preaching to the Democrats who already they've said what they want to do. They want, and we're a nonpartisan group, guys, totally nonpartisan. We pretty much hate both parties at this point. But the Democrats have showed what they want to do, and they want to do this up to $50,000 bullshit. And I'm sorry to say that. So we can run around, preaching to the choir on the Democratic side all day long. But where this problem is really solved is with the Republicans. It's with the conservatives. It's with people like Steve Bannon, idiot. Anyways, pretty much ruined my day today and yesterday to hear Steve Bannon just spout this just absolutely bankers shilling rhetoric. So again, send this video to Steve Bannon if you can. He's on Getter. He's got kicked off Twitter, but he's on Getter. So at Steve Bannon, if you happen to do Getter, which I don't know how many people do. Anyways, we're kicking ass, guys. We are. And more than anything, we need your help. I've already said what I want you to do. I'm not going to repeat myself. Okay, I'll repeat myself one time. Daily actions. Do our daily actions. Don't forget. But we got this, guys, but we need your help. This could have we want a clean death to this lending system, not a messy, horrible, cruel, years-long, potentially civilly, certainly socially unrestful unwinding. We don't want that. We want these loans gone. Ideally by May 1st. And by the way, guys, don't forget, there's a pretty direct path between getting our bankruptcy rights back and getting the loans canceled. Okay, one last policy point. Here's the thing you need to know. Fewer than 1 million people file for bankruptcy in this country for any reason in an average year. There are like 39, 40, 41, 42 million distressed federal student loan borrowers in the country right now. So if they return bankruptcy and Joe Biden does not broadly cancel loans, he's looking at a wave of bankruptcy filings in the tens of millions potentially of people. And believe me, Joe Biden does not want to be the president who presides over the mass bankruptcy of 10, 20 million people. He does not want to be that guy. That's worse than the Great Depression by far in pure numbers, but even as a percentage. That's not going to happen, guys. So as soon as we get the threat of bankruptcy back, everything gets better. So just remember that. All right, guys. I hope that I've been informative and enlightening tonight. I will be back on Sunday. Daily actions, guys, starts with you. Always has. In the immortal words of fictional hero John Connor from Terminator 4, you have no idea how important you are. So have a good weekend. Fight this fight over the weekend. I do it 7 days a week. You should too, from here on out. So good luck, everybody. Have a great weekend. Godspeed. And God bless. Oh, and please donate if you can. StudentLoanJustice.org. Please donate.